At 11:30 p.m., my fiancée accidentally sent me. Come, let's F. She deleted it fast. I followed the location. She was naked, jumping on him. I kicked the door in. I had always thought of myself as a rational man. My name is Elias, 30 years old, working in logistics, the kind of job that doesn't impress anyone at dinner parties but pays the bills and keeps things steady. I had been engaged to Mira for nearly a year, and the wedding was less than 4 months away. She was a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized firm, clever with people, the type who could walk into a room and leave with 3 new friends. We built what I thought was a balanced life, some debts, a savings account that we were slowly padding, plans for a future apartment instead of the small rental we lived in. On the surface, nothing screamed danger. Nothing suggested that a bomb was ticking under my feet. That night, I was lying on the couch, scrolling half-distractedly through emails when my phone buzzed. It was 11:30 p.m. Mira had gone out earlier in the evening, saying she was meeting co-workers for late drinks. She had laughed when I offered to drive her, insisting it was just a casual thing. I believed her. That's what makes what happened next hit so hard. The notification lit up my screen. A message from Mira. My heart jumped. Maybe she was coming home early. Maybe she missed me. Then I read it. Come, let's F. Asterisk. No context. No explanation. Just those words. I froze. At first, I thought maybe it was some twisted joke or a glitch. But my phone registered something else. A pin location attached to the message. A map link. And then, just as fast as it came, the message disappeared. Deleted. Gone from the chat. But not gone from me. Phones have quirks. Notifications linger even if the message is recalled. I had already seen it, and the location had already cached itself. My pulse raced. Logic wrestled with denial. Maybe she'd meant it for me? No, that wasn't how Mira texted. She never used blunt phrasing like that. She would have written my name, added something playful. This was stripped down, raw, urgent, and meant for someone else. The more I thought, the less it felt like a misunderstanding. My body moved before my brain could fully process it. I pulled on my jacket, grabbed my keys, and traced the map. The address wasn't a restaurant or bar. It wasn't even in the district where Mira said she was going. It was an apartment complex 10 minutes across town. The drive felt endless. My hands gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles whitened. Every red light felt like a personal taunt. I kept replaying the message in my mind, the way it appeared and vanished, as if it was never meant to exist. When I reached the building, the parking lot was quiet, only a few scattered cars under weak yellow lamps. The location pointed me to the 3rd floor. Apartment 307. My legs felt both heavy and electric as I climbed the stairs. Every step carried a mix of dread and rage. I reached the door. Muffled sounds leaked through. Laughter. A rhythm. Something unmistakable. I didn't knock. I didn't wait. My body crashed forward, and the door gave way with a force I didn't even know I had. The scene froze me for a split second, and then everything exploded. Mira was there, naked, on top of a man I didn't recognize immediately. Her hair was a mess, her face twisted in a mixture of shock and panic. The man, later I would learn his name was Jonas, looked directly at me, not even ashamed, just startled like a thief caught mid-act. Time didn't slow down. It sped up. Mira screamed. Jonas tried to shove her off and scramble, but I was already across the room. My fist connected with his jaw before he could stand. He toppled backward, hitting the side of the couch, groaning in pain. Neighbors started pounding on the walls from the noise. Someone shouted through the hallway. Mira wrapped herself in a blanket, her face pale, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't decide what excuse to try first. I wasn't listening. I was scanning everything. The wine glasses on the table, half empty. The scattered clothes leading from the front door to the bedroom. The dim lights. The sheer comfort of the scene that told me this wasn't their first time. They hadn't rushed. They had settled in, as if this was routine. I shouted, but not words of heartbreak, words of fury. I demanded to know how long, demanded answers Jonas wasn't willing to give. He spat blood onto the carpet, clutching his jaw, muttering curses. Mira tried to step between us, begging me to stop. But it was too late. This wasn't a confrontation. This was exposure. The illusion of trust had shattered with one message, and now all the lies behind it spilled into the open. The hallway filled with commotion. A neighbor cracked the door open, wide-eyed, phone in hand. I realized then that I couldn't stay. If the police came, it would be my word against theirs, and Mira was already scrambling for her phone. I backed toward the door, chest heaving, vision blurring with rage. I left, slamming it so hard behind me the frame rattled. The night air outside hit me like ice, but it didn't cool anything. My heart felt like it was tearing through my ribs. In the car, I sat in silence, my hands trembling on the wheel. The betrayal wasn't a question anymore. It was a fact. Mira hadn't just slipped once. This was practiced, deliberate, and vile. I burned. And I knew, as I sat in that parking lot at midnight, staring at the glow of that apartment window, that this wasn't the end of the story. This was only the opening act of something much darker. I didn't sleep that night. Sleep wasn't even a possibility. I drove home in silence, replaying every detail in my head like a broken record I couldn't turn off. The words of that message, the sight of Mira in another man's arms, Jonas's cocky face even after I'd hit him. It all looped until dawn crept in through the blinds and painted the walls with pale light. At 7 in the morning, I heard the front door open. Mira walked in as if nothing had happened. Her hair was neatly tied back, her makeup carefully done, but exhaustion hung under her eyes. She froze when she saw me sitting on the couch. For a moment, her lips parted, but instead of guilt, I saw calculation. She had a story ready. She spoke quickly, filling the silence before I could cut in. She said I had misunderstood, that I had overreacted, that Jonas was only a friend and things had spun out of control. She told me she was confused, that she needed space. She delivered it like a script rehearsed in front of the mirror, just enough tremor in her voice to sound believable to anyone who hadn't been there. But I wasn't asking for performances. I asked her one question. How long? She looked away. Her silence was louder than anything she had just said. I stood, grabbed my jacket, and walked out. I knew I wouldn't get truth from her. Arguments would only feed her story. If I wanted answers, I had to look elsewhere. I spent the morning making calls. Kareem, an old friend who still had connections at Myra's office, was my first lifeline. By noon, he confirmed what I had suspected but dreaded hearing. Jonas wasn't some stranger she had stumbled into by accident. He was her colleague, recently promoted, and Mira had been assigned to work directly under him. They had traveled together for campaigns, overnight stays paid by the company. Those nights I had trusted her stories about client dinners and late hotel check-ins were nothing more than opportunities for them to be together. The part that twisted my stomach came next. Kareem told me Jonas had a reputation. He was older, smooth, the kind of man who collected women like trophies but was careful about how he did it. Rumors followed him, flirtations that crossed lines, an old harassment claim that had vanished without explanation, whispers of bar fights that ended with him untouched. He had connections that helped him dodge consequences, and Mira had been pulled straight into his orbit. I dug deeper on my own. I went through old texts between Mira and me, looking for patterns I'd ignored. Suddenly, everything lined up. The nights, she claimed exhaustion matched with Jonas's business dinners. The weekends she claimed she was out with friends coincided with company team-building trips. Every excuse was a piece of camouflage. I had been blind, not because the signs weren't there, but because I never imagined she'd betray me so completely. Later that afternoon, I checked our joint bank account, and what I saw nearly broke me. For months, Mira had been quietly draining it. Small withdrawals at first, 200 here, 300 there, but always consistent. Over 4 months, the numbers added up to thousands, all categorized vaguely as personal expenses or travel. She had been using the money we saved for our wedding and our apartment to finance her double life with Jonas. Dinners, hotel upgrades, weekend escapes. My labor had been the wallet for their romance. The rage I felt then was sharper than anything from the night before. This wasn't only cheating. It was theft. She hadn't just betrayed me as a partner. She had stolen from me as if I were nothing more than a faceless fool. By evening, the fallout spread beyond our apartment. Friends began reaching out, their messages carrying the fingerprints of Myra's lies. Sophia, one of our mutuals, said she had heard I had lost control the night before, that I had broken into a co-worker's home in a jealous rage. Mira was already reshaping the story to make me the aggressor. In her version, she was the victim of a paranoid fiancé who couldn't handle her independence. But lies never stay airtight. Alexei, another friend, reached out too. He told me he had been at a party 2 weeks ago where Mira showed up with Jonas, arm in arm, laughing together. She told people I was working late and knew about it. At the time, Alexei thought nothing of it, but now he realized she had been preparing the ground, rewriting me into her narrative as absent and permissive. Piece by piece, her web of deceit began to crack. Some friends believed her, others believed me. The division was sharp, but the truth had its own weight. On the 3rd day, Mira tried her boldest move yet. She came home, sat across from me with watery eyes, and began another performance. She said I was controlling, that I spied on her, that Jonas had been a source of emotional support I had failed to provide. She twisted her betrayal into a story where she was the one neglected, the one driven to bad decisions by my supposed coldness. Then came the threat. She leaned closer, her voice lower but steadier than her tears suggested. She said if I didn't stop talking, she would tell people I had hit her, that when I stormed into Jonas's apartment, I had assaulted him without provocation. She said the bruised jaw I gave him would be proof. That moment changed everything. It wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was open warfare. Mira wasn't only covering her tracks. She was ready to destroy me completely to save herself. If she could paint me as violent, she could salvage her reputation and keep her career intact. And Jonas, with his bloodied lip and history of slipping out of consequences, would back her. I realized then that if I didn't tread carefully, I could lose more than just Mira. I could lose my freedom, my job, everything I had worked for. But the more I learned about Jonas, the clearer my path became. Through Kareem and others, I pieced together the truth. Jonas wasn't just a man who happened to fall into an affair. He was deliberate. He thrived on manipulation. A predator in the office, shielded by charm and connections. The harassment complaint that disappeared wasn't the only one. Another co-worker had once whispered about how Jonas cornered her during a business trip. She had quit shortly after. Nobody wanted to stand against him openly, but the stories were there. Jonas wasn't clean. And Mira? She wasn't just a victim of his charm. She had joined him willingly, enjoying the money, the attention, and the thrill of secrecy. Together, they weren't two lovers in a mistake. They were co-conspirators, and I had been the fool financing it. The breaking point came when I returned home one evening to find Mira gone. Her side of the closet half empty, drawers yanked open. On the kitchen table sat a note, short and sharp. I need space. Don't contact me. No apology. No explanation. Just dismissal. I checked our bank account again. Another withdrawal, nearly $1,000 this time. She wasn't just walking away. She was stripping everything she could as she went. I sat in the dark with that note in one hand and the account balance glowing on the laptop in front of me. The rage I felt wasn't wild anymore. It was something colder, clearer, like a storm moving in after the fire. Mira thought she could erase me with lies. She thought Jonas's shadow would shield them both. But she didn't understand what betrayal like this does to a man. That night, I made my decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to crawl away quietly while they burned through what I had built. I was going to dismantle them, piece by piece. Not with fists, not with blind rage, but with proof, with precision, with the kind of exposure that left no escape. Because if Mira thought deleting a message could erase her betrayal, and Jonas thought his connections could protect him, then neither of them had met the version of me who had nothing left to lose. I stopped thinking of myself as Myra's fiancé the moment I read that note she left on the kitchen table. Whatever we had, whatever love I thought existed, it was ashes. What remained wasn't grief anymore. It was strategy. I was staring at two people who had stolen from me, lied about me, and plotted to bury me under their narrative. If I wanted to survive this, I had to outplay them. The first step was gathering proof. Everything Mira had deleted, every excuse she had made, every receipt I still had stored in folders and emails suddenly became ammunition. I combed through bank statements, cross-referenced dates with her supposed trips, even matched them against my own text history. Patterns formed. There was no way she could explain why money disappeared from our account at the same time she booked work trips. Screenshots piled up. I saved them to multiple drives, one hidden at Kareem's place, one uploaded to a secure account under a name she didn't know. But proof alone wasn't enough. Mira had already shown me how far she'd go to twist a story. She could cry on command, spin words like silk, make herself the victim. If I wanted to win, I couldn't just have evidence. I needed witnesses. Alexei was the first person I met. We sat in his car at night, windows fogged, both of us chain-smoking out of nerves. He admitted he had seen Mira and Jonas together more than once. Not just at the party, but leaving a restaurant late at night, getting into Jonas's car with hands locked together. He never said anything because he thought maybe I knew. Hearing that, my chest tightened, but I didn't blame him. Mira had built that illusion so carefully that silence seemed safer than confrontation. Still, his words gave me more than comfort. They gave me testimony. Sophia reached out next. She had been skeptical of Myra's story from the beginning. Now that rumors were spreading, she wanted the truth. When I told her everything, when I showed her the message, the bank records, the receipts Mira hadn't erased, Sophia's face hardened. She promised she would back me if Mira tried to accuse me of violence. Her word mattered. People trusted her. That was another stone in the foundation I was building. Mira must have sensed I was preparing something because her next move came quickly. She returned one evening with her parents in tow. They sat in the living room, stiff and cold, as Mira performed again. She cried. She wailed. She said I had humiliated her by storming into Jonas's apartment, that I had lost my temper, that she was scared of me. Her mother's face twisted with disgust. Her father barely looked at me. But when I pulled out the printed bank records, laid them on the table, and asked them why their daughter had drained nearly $5,000 from our savings, the room shifted. Myra's tears faltered. Her parents looked at each other. They hadn't known. The more I explained, The more I showed, the shakier Myra's story became. She snapped, yelling that I was obsessed, that I was spying on her, but I didn't need to raise my voice. I simply slid the last piece of paper forward, the screenshot of the 11:30 p.m. message. Her father's face went white. Her mother's lips pressed into a line. They didn't leave with answers. They left with silence. Mira followed them out the door, throwing one last hateful glare at me. That was the first time I saw her mask slip, the fury beneath the performance. She wasn't afraid of me. She was afraid of losing control of the story. Jonas entered the picture directly not long after. I was walking back from the grocery store late at night when he stepped out of the shadows near the parking lot. His jaw was still swollen, his lips scarred from where I had hit him. He smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile meant to intimidate. He told me I had no idea who I was messing with, that people listened to him, that stories could change if the right person told them. He leaned in, breath hot with cheap cologne and arrogance, and whispered that Mira wasn't coming back to me, that she had chosen better. He said it like a challenge, as if daring me to fight. I didn't swing this time. I looked him dead in the eyes and told him I already had enough proof to burn his career. His smile faltered, just for a second, but I saw it. He walked away, pretending he wasn't rattled, but I knew he understood something had shifted. The next day, Kareem called me. Someone had sent an anonymous tip to Jonas's company HR, including screenshots of inappropriate messages between him and Mira, photos of them at a hotel when they were supposed to be at a conference. Kareem swore it wasn't him, but he knew the information must have come from me. I didn't confirm it. I didn't deny it. Jonas's perfect image at work had just cracked. The whispers about him were no longer whispers. They were evidence. Mira doubled down. She called me in the middle of the night, her voice venom instead of tears. She accused me of ruining her life, said I was obsessed with revenge. She threatened again to go to the police, to tell them I had broken into Jonas's home and assaulted him. This time I laughed. I told her if she tried, I would hand over every record of her theft, every lie, every witness statement I had lined up. That silence on the other end of the phone was sweeter than any comfort I could have imagined. She knew she was cornered, but I wasn't finished. It wasn't enough to survive their attacks. I wanted them to feel the weight of what they had done. So I sent the evidence to her parents directly, not in anger, not with insults, but as a calm package, bank statements, screenshots, receipts. A single note attached. This is where your daughter's money went. They didn't respond, but through Sophia I heard that Mira had been kicked out of their house after a brutal fight. They had covered for her too many times before, but the financial theft was the last straw. Jonas, meanwhile, faced a storm at work. The harassment claims from the past resurfaced now that people saw proof of his latest affair with a subordinate. His promotion was frozen. His spotless reputation collapsed under the weight of evidence. He wasn't fired immediately, but his position weakened. He was no longer untouchable. I started to breathe again, not because I was healed, far from it, but because the balance had shifted. They weren't the predators anymore. They were prey scrambling in the open, trying to patch holes in a sinking ship. Mira tried once more to reach me. She showed up outside the apartment late at night, banging on the door, screaming that she deserved to explain, that she could fix this. I didn't open. I watched through the peephole as neighbors came out, as she realized her performance wasn't working anymore. She left in tears, or maybe rage, it didn't matter. Her stage had collapsed. I wasn't naive. I knew I wasn't safe yet. People like Jonas didn't go down quietly. Mira didn't accept defeat easily, but every lie they had spun was unraveling, and the more they fought, the deeper they sank. I had started this as a betrayed man, broken and furious. Now I was something else entirely. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was orchestrating. Each piece of proof, each witness, each revelation was part of a web I was spinning back around them. And the best part? They didn't even realize how much worse it was about to get. The weeks after Myra's midnight screaming at my door felt different. I wasn't scrambling anymore. I wasn't reacting to their moves. They were reacting to mine. Every attempt they made to twist the story only pulled the rope tighter around their own necks. Word about Jonas spread fast through his office. The HR department couldn't ignore the package of proof that had landed on their desks. Screenshots of messages between him and Mira were now floating around like wildfire. Some were flirty, others were explicit, and the timestamps on them matched dates of official work trips. What had been private whispers in the corridors turned into an open conversation. People who had stayed silent about him before suddenly had the courage to speak. A junior employee stepped forward to say he had cornered her at a conference. Another claimed he had promised promotions in exchange for friendship. For years, his charm and connections had protected him. Now, with real proof on the table, those shields shattered. The promotion he had just received was stripped away. A formal investigation launched. He wasn't fired immediately, but his future was finished. The image he had cultivated, polished, professional, respected, was ruined beyond repair. He walked the halls with his head down, no longer greeted by smiles, but by whispers and pointed fingers. Myra's downfall came differently, but no less cruelly. Her parents finally saw her for what she was when I handed them the financial proof. They had always tolerated her impulsive behavior, brushed it off as youthful mistakes, but the theft broke them. They had trusted her with support during college, covered her debts in the past, and now realized she had bled me dry without hesitation. They told her to leave their house. When she tried to argue, her father threw the papers I had given him onto the floor and walked away. She tried staying with Jonas, but even that didn't last. His world was collapsing, and dragging her along made it worse. His colleagues knew her face now, whispered about her being part of his scandals. She was no longer a secret. She was a liability. He pushed her away, told her she had become dead weight. Within weeks, the man she thought she had chosen over me treated her like she was disposable. For the first time, she called me, not to threaten, but to beg. She said she had nowhere to go, no money, no friends who wanted her around. Her voice was cracked, desperate, a shadow of the woman who once looked me in the eyes and swore she loved me. I listened, silent, and when she finished, I told her she made her choices. Then I hung up. It was the easiest thing I'd ever done. But the consequences weren't just personal. The lies Mira had tried to spread about me began to backfire. Sophia, Alexei, and others who knew the truth made sure her stories didn't stick. The more she tried to insist I was controlling or violent, the more people asked why her bank records matched my claims. Why her own friends had seen her with Jonas before I ever stormed into that apartment. Why she had been kicked out of her parents' house. Her credibility collapsed. The girl who once charmed every room became the girl everyone whispered about for the wrong reasons. Jonas's intimidation didn't stop immediately. He tried cornering me again, this time outside my office building. He told me he still had friends in high places, that if I kept pushing, I'd regret it. But this time I was ready. I had already filed a statement with HR at his company, providing additional records. I had a lawyer lined up, briefed and armed with documentation. When Jonas raised his voice, security came out and escorted him off the property. For once, his threats didn't carry weight. They looked pathetic, and I didn't even need to lift a finger to finish him. His company did it for me. The internal investigation uncovered not just Mira, but years of patterns. His cousin on the police force couldn't save him when corporate lawyers and shareholders wanted him gone. He was suspended indefinitely, his salary cut off, his title erased. The man who thought himself untouchable was suddenly just another unemployed fraud. His reputation dragged through the mud online and off. Mira, meanwhile, hit rock bottom faster than I expected. She tried renting a small place, but couldn't afford it once her parents cut her off and Jonas dropped her. She drifted between couches of people who only tolerated her for days before telling her to leave. The social circles she had once ruled closed their doors. Nobody trusted her. Nobody wanted to get pulled into her chaos. She even reached out to Sophia once, but Sophia sent her a single sentence in return: "You reap what you sow." I won't pretend I felt nothing watching them fall. I felt plenty. I felt satisfaction. I felt justice. I felt a sense of balance returning to a world that had been tilted violently against me. They had tried to bury me under lies and manipulation, and instead they had buried themselves. One evening, weeks later, I walked past a cafe near Myra's old office. Through the window, I saw her sitting alone. No makeup, hair a mess, shoulders slumped. She wasn't laughing, wasn't surrounded by friends, wasn't glowing with charm. She was just diminished. A shell of the woman I thought I knew. She didn't see me, and I didn't stop. That glimpse was enough. I thought about Jonas too. I heard from Kareem that he tried applying to other companies, but every background check turned up the scandal. His name was mud in the industry. He had to sell his car to pay legal fees. The predator had been declawed. People sometimes ask what revenge feels like. They expect fire, an explosion, some moment of triumph where you scream at the sky. For me, it was quieter. It was walking down the street without fear of their lies. It was looking at the wreckage of their lives and knowing I hadn't needed to lie, cheat, or steal to put them there. The truth had been enough when wielded with precision. I didn't rebuild immediately. Trust doesn't regrow in a season. But I did find peace. I moved to a new apartment, closer to work, smaller, but mine alone. I changed accounts, changed numbers, changed locks. Every change felt like a closing chapter. Mira never called again after that last begging attempt. Jonas never showed his face to me again. Their story ended not with a dramatic explosion, but with silence, with absence, with consequences that stuck. Looking back now, I realized the most important thing wasn't that I caught them. It wasn't that I exposed them. It was that I refused to let their lies define me. They tried to take everything: my money, my reputation, even my freedom. They ended up with nothing. That was karma in its truest form. And me? I walked away scarred but standing. That was enough. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day. And trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.